Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another edition of the Pick Six. I'm your host, Wabi, inside the TCO studios. Rookie minicamp has come and gone. There are some observations to go over and some questions to answer from you guys. So let's get to work. Question number one comes from Andy in Jefferson City. Who stood out at rookie minicamp? Well, I always think it's easy to notice the pass catchers at practice or camps, and I thought a couple of them stood out for the Vikings this past weekend. Wide receiver Olabisi Johnson, the Vikings found him later in the draft, but I thought he looked really good. Also, second-round pick, tight end Irv Smith Jr. looked good and smooth, catching passes from the quarterbacks. Garrett Bradbury looks like a stud in the middle of the offensive line. And USC linebacker Cameron Smith, really well put together athlete, moves around really well. I'm excited to see how he fits, not just with the Vikings defense, but on special teams as well. All in all, it was fun to get out there and watch some of the Vikings' new playmakers make plays. Question number two comes from Jeff in Sacramento. Unless he's tripped low, I have yet to see Alexander Mattison taken down by one guy or the first tackler. Great attribute. Totally agree. And when you watch Mattison's tape from Boise State, you see the same thing. You see a guy who is always falling forward and is delivering the hit to the tackler rather than the other way around. He looked good at Vikings rookie minicamp this weekend as well. I anticipate he's going to join this Vikings running backs group and make that room even better. The next question comes from Ethan in Tokyo, Japan. Sheldon Richardson was a quality starter. I'm looking forward to the battle for the new starting spot this summer. Yes, the three-tech position in Mike Zimmer's defense, he talks all the time about how important it is. Now, the Vikings beefed up their run defense this offseason in free agency by bringing back Shamar Stephen, so he's a name to watch at three technique. But the Vikings also have some youngsters in the fold who could develop in that position. Jalen Holmes, a draft pick from last year, is a name to watch, and so too is Armon Watts, a draft pick from this year. Those two guys will join Shamar Stephen and a few others to battle for playing time at three technique. The next question comes from Noel in Bayfield, Wisconsin. Assuming Bradbury earns the starting center position, who among the guards, based on past performance, has the inside line for the starting left guard position? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I know Bradbury was the Remington Award honoree for the top center in college football last year, but he also played guard at NC State, so Garrett Bradbury can play in either spot. Pat Elflein, last year's center, who was really good as a rookie and battled through some injuries last year getting ready for the season, remains a key cog in this offensive line. So Elflein and Bradbury are going to anchor the Vikings line in the middle. After that, you have draft picks from a couple of years ago, you have returning veterans, and you have a draft pick from this year who are all going to compete for time at the guard position. Next question comes from William in Tallahassee. I liked our draft, but was wondering why we didn't get a better wide receiver. Well, William, before you write off our wide receivers this year, let's give them a chance to compete. As I said earlier, Olabisi Johnson looked really good at rookie minicamp. The Vikings have some veterans who are going to be returning, and they also have another pick, Mitchell, who they got in the 6th round out of Oregon, who's going to compete for time at wide receiver. I like the Vikings pass catchers. It starts with Diggs and Thielen, but after those guys, the Vikings have some young ones looking to make a name for themselves. And the next question comes from Justin in Abilene, Kansas. I know I'm not a draft expert, but please explain to me the strategy of trading down from pick 81 to pick 102 and then moving up from pick 120 to pick 114. Well, I'm guessing what happened at pick 81 moving to 102 is the Vikings had a bunch of players on the board that they liked, so they knew they could move back to 102 and still get one of those players. But I bet you the reverse happened at pick 114 when the Vikings liked Samia and didn't think he would last until pick 120, so they knew they had to move up to go and get their guy. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Pick Six, but we're going to be back next week, so please continue to submit your questions to the email address at the bottom of the screen, and maybe we'll see you in next week's edition of the Pick Six.